Refresh your garden with the Bark Unlimited range of top quality organic products. Bark Unlimited Organics. Refresh nature.
We're in 6 provinces at the moment. Actually 7, because we've recently started doing Limpopo, so it's only the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape that we're not servicing at this stage, and then we've got a huge footprint in Namibia, and we've also ventured into Botswana lately. So we do export, and unlike, I don't know if you all remember the outspan oranges we used to get at school as children in that little box with that plastic thingy, and you would squeeze the orange and then drink the juice. Now most of those oranges were exported to Europe and so on, and we were only getting the subgrade produce here. We haven't gone that route. So all the stuff that you can buy in Hector here is exactly the same products as what we export. So the quality is exactly the same, and that's why we also say that we do sell export quality product. We've set 5 strategies in place to grow our business, and one of those strategies was to sell quality only. Therefore, you will see, for instance, we don't do mushroom compost, and I'm not a big believer in mushroom compost. Mushroom compost is the composting process they use for mushroom compost is an anaerobic process. In other words, the bacteria that lives in that compost also creates rotting, and we don't want that in our gardens. We use an aerobic compost, so our compost gets turned very frequently and it gets oxygenated, so we get rid of all the carbon dioxide, get new oxygen into the windrows, and it's full of microorganisms. A lot of people ask us, so you put it into a plastic bag, so what happens to the microorganisms? Some of them, if it's in the bag long enough, they will die off. But they're still there, and the moment they get into contact with oxygen and moisture, then they revive. So they will come back in their millions the moment you open up that bag and put that soil into your garden or into a pot plant.
May I ask, what would you use in place of bone meal when you have dogs who like gardening?
Well, the only other thing is actually superphosphate in place of bone meal, but I would still rather use bone meal, and it's only going to be a couple of days before the smell is gone. They will dig after the smell of the bone meal. Yes.
Sandy soil. I've got very, very clay soil.
Yes. Okay, that's a very valid question. We've actually done a video on clay and sandy soil, and this is going to sound like I'm just punting compost now. But when you've got sandy soil, to increase your water holding capacity and to stop all your nutrients from just leaching out, you're going to add compost to soil. A lot of people will believe that they must put in river sand. Now what happens when you put river sand into clay soil is the clay goes, if this is a sand granule, the clay goes and sits around the sand granule, and it binds, and when it goes dry, it becomes as hard as concrete. So the only way to actually loosen up clay soil is again by adding organic matter. So compost, we can dig compost into our soil, or just put a nice layer of mulch on top of the clay, and the earthworms will eventually work that into the soil and loosen up the soil, and you will see in years to come you will have a very nice soil to work with, which is loose, you know. So even if you've got black clay, or you get different types of clay soils. Yeah, so by adding organic matter, that actually breaks up the clay and will keep the soil loose. Yes, ma'am.
First time I've seen indoor pot.
There's not a huge difference. The indoor potting soil is composted bark, which we screen to as about between 18 and 15 millimeter size. So that's a pure bark based growing medium. There's no soil in it, there's no compost in it, it's plain bark, and they normally use that for indoor pot plants because of the weight of the medium. It's a very lightweight mix. And then our outdoor potting soil, we add it's a mixture of 45% of that same bark, 45% compost and 10% sandy topsoil. The reason why we're doing the sandy topsoil is if you've got potting soil which consists of organic matter only and it dries out, it's extremely difficult getting it wet again. So the sandy topsoil that we put in is just to absorb the water, and then once it's in the sand, that will rehydrate the rest of the growing medium. That's if it dries out completely, which we should actually avoid at all times, because if it goes completely dry, it means your plant is already damaged. Yes, ma'am.
How would you control ants?
Okay, there's a product on the market called DDM. It's diatomaceous earth. You get two types of diatomaceous earth. One is for horticultural use, and then you also get a food grade one which you can buy from health stores for consuming. Now what DDM does, it's almost like a coral which they've grinded it all up, but if you look at it under a microscope, it's got extremely sharp crystals which stands in all directions, and what that does, it punctures the exoskeleton of the insects, and then they just dehydrate, so then they die. So it's not a poison, and that's a very safe product to use. If you can touch it with your hands, your dogs and cats are safe with that product, even birds and reptiles. The only problem with that product is it doesn't discriminate between good and bad insects. So if you've got praying mantises in your garden and you use that product, they're unfortunately not going to make it. Yes, ma'am. It's extremely difficult to get rid of them, but if you've got good soil health, then normally the natural predators of those pests will be there. For instance, if you look at there's a little gogga called the eelworm, which attacks the root systems of certain plants. If you've got potatoes, for instance, if you take them out of the soil and it looks like they're full of warts, that's the eelworm. Now it doesn't affect the nutrient value of the potato or the taste of it. It's just not nice. Holding on to a potato like that and thinking there's minute little worms in there and you're going to eat it. So the reason why a lot of our soils have got excessive eelworm infestation is because of all the years of chemical practices. So the moment you go back to organic and you start adding compost to your soil, and your soil becomes nice and loose and brittle, the eelworm can't move in the soil and can't get to the potato or can't get to your tomatoes roots, so they can't move in the soil. But the other thing that happens is their natural predators also returns, and that creates a perfect balance in the soil. So you will always have eelworm in the soil, but the natural predators will be there, and it will affect your plant in such a small way that you won't even realize that they're still there. One of our products, I think that's in the yellow bag, which is our enriched garden soil and lawn dressing. That's an ideal product to use for raised beds or for container gardening where you want to do your vegetables and so on. And then if you just fill the bed with that and use a 232 fertilizer to start off with, just to enrich it a little further, that should be adequate for growing of vegetable crops. And then you can also add to two bags of that, you can add 1 bag of the hemp super soil to make the soil even more fluffy and give it a better water retention. So those are extremely good growing mediums for raised beds, container gardening, especially when it comes to edible crops. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
What do you do with white?
Normally, you can spray insecticide, But whitefly, the moment even if you just spray it with clean water, the moment it gets wet and it falls to the ground, it's gone. It can't get up again. So the best will actually be just either plain water or all sunlight liquid into 2 liters of water and just spray it with that, because it only acts as a wetting agent. In other words, a sticker. So then the insect sticks to the plant and it can't go anywhere, or to the soil or the pot or whatever. So that's a very natural way of getting rid of them. Just compost, lots and lots of compost, and again organic fertilizers. So I would put in some compost, and 232 is always a good fertilizer. And after that you can go to 315, because I don't know if you all know how the formulations of the fertilizers works. It's got 3 different numbers on the bag. So the first one is for your nitrogen content. So if you look at the 232, the 2 is your nitrogen, the 3 is your phosphates. Remember I said when you do a new garden, you need to add phosphate to the soil. So 232 has already got a high phosphate content, and then the last number is your potassium, which is for flowering and for fruiting. So when you start off with a new garden, you can either put in bone meal or a 232, which will already supply enough nitrogen and potassium for most plants to thrive in that soil. So when you do a vegetable garden or maybe an orchard where you plant some nice trees, fruit trees and so on, the moment those plants want to go into flower, you need to add a high potassium fertilizer to help the plant make proper flowers and to sustain the fruit. So even for roses, I would do that 315, because that will promote the rose to flower in abundance. That's what's nice about the organic fertilizers. It stays in the soil for much longer, because it needs to be broken down by the microorganisms, where a chemical fertilizer gets dissolved by the water and then it leaches out, especially in sandy soil. So it moves down in the soil to where your plants can't reach it anymore. So if you use organic fertilizer, that stays in the root zone of the plant, and a lot of the organic fertilizers are available for up to 12 weeks. So you only need to fertilize 4 times a year. Organic fertilizers are much more expensive than chemical fertilizers, but the benefits outweighs the price. We're actually negotiating with a retail nursery group in the Cape to stock our products, but our lower value products like the compost and the lawn dressing and some of the potting soils might not be available there, but all the specialized mixes like the orchid mix and the cycad mix, clivia mix, mulches, that will all be available there soon. Okay, that's also a very valid question. Compost is basically, like I said, we use sawdust and different types of manure to manufacture the compost from, and that's for putting into your flower beds, and for if you want to plant a new tree, for instance, you will dig a hole, you'll take say half of the soil that comes from the hole, add about 30%, so you'll take say 2 parts soil, 1 part compost and some bone meal. That's going to go back into the hole for planting the tree. The rest of the soil you'll make a nice little domickie for it, to retain the water. So the lawn dressing, we take that same compost, we take 50% compost and 50% sandy topsoil. Now the reason why we're taking the topsoil is when you've got an uneven lawn, you want to fill those indents, you want to fill those with some form of soil, a heavier type of material, not just plain compost. Most of us don't have fancy lawnmowers, so we just have like a lawnmower that rotates like that, and when you put plain compost on your lawn, after about 2 or 3 passes with the lawnmower, you've picked it all up and it all goes back to the landfill, because most people don't even make their own compost. So even if you were to make your own compost, it wouldn't have been all that bad, but most people put it in a dustbin and it goes to a landfill. So we've put some 50% of sandy topsoil, also a very nice clean topsoil, which we use in our lawn dressing. It makes it a little bit heavier, and we get extremely good results with it.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
It's from
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And
that's a lot to digest, but wow, what a wonderful talk.
thank you very much. And I will be available afterwards. I will wait here, and if there are more people who want to talk to me, or even if you've got suggestions for me, I'll listen to those.
Refresh your garden with the Bark Unlimited range of top quality organic products. Bark Unlimited Organics. Refresh nature.